the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment period. Have any public comments? Just stand up and come to the podium.
Yeah, Frank Dorsey. Did we get one fan turned on
Yeah, let's see what happens.
back there?
Can you just pull this from
Is that how you do it?
here?
Alright.
Or someone, Norm, can you pull that? Sorry.
I don't know if this was, I should pick up the channel. We went, I guess, a meeting or two ago. Have you ever gotten, been able to get any, like, emergency contact numbers for, like, who owns this, piece of equipment out here in the field? Windstream or so?
Right out here.
Yeah. Remember we're having,
Right.
you can't, it seems like you have to run around.
Sure.
We ever-
Did you get a good contact?
And I think the same thing kind of happened with the communication line out here on 73 that was, kept catching on fire. And I think it took finally a lot to get some sort of momentum moved on it. That's it for now.
Thank you. Other public comments? Okay, thank you. All right, public hearing, conditional use, 2023-01.
Good evening, Carl Weeder representing the applicant. Property, I don't know if you want to read the notice first.
So let me read the public notice, and I also want to discuss party status with the folks that are here, if you don't, it's okay. Let's begin the proceedings by, I'll read the public notice that was published, posted, and mailed to various residents in the township. It reads as follows. Notice is hereby given pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 285 of the Code of the Township of Upper Frederick that the Board of Supervisors will hold on August 10th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Upper Frederick Township Building with the address, a conditional use application of Big Road LLC for a conditional use permit as required in the zoning hearing board decision and order granted August 29th, 2022 to permit a private custom automobile restoration and preservation facility on a 9.31 acre tract of land located at 3029 and 3045 Big Road. A complete copy of the application is available for inspection at the Upper Frederick Township Municipal Building during normal business hours. At the time of the hearing, all interested parties may appear and present testimony. Just by way of explanation briefly for those that are here and interested in this proceeding, a conditional use hearing is much as those two words describe. It's a use of a particular property that is allowed conditionally. This applicant has already appeared before the zoning hearing board and was granted relief or permission or variances to allow this use. And now tonight they'll make a presentation to the Board of Supervisors who will either grant or deny their request for conditional use approval. People that are, there is a procedure. This is known as a quasi-judicial proceeding, so it's a little unlike the hearings you may have attended at the township before. The applicant will present their case. The board members may ask questions. The applicant will presumably have witnesses who will testify, may offer documents and evidence and so forth. Folks that are here will be allowed to ask questions of the witnesses also when they're done, being direct examined and cross-examined, etc. But I want to discuss something called party status. If there's anybody who's here who wishes to be a party to proceedings, they may be able to have that right. In order to have party status, you need to own property in close proximity to this property and be able to demonstrate that your property would or could be adversely affected by the outcome here. If you wish to be a party and you're granted party status, that gives you the right to testify, on your own behalf, call witnesses on your behalf, introduce documents and evidence on your own behalf. Would also allow you to file an appeal, be represented by counsel, and so forth. With that sort of brief introduction, and also knowing this, that you don't need to be party status to ask questions, or just say, I live in the township and I heard the testimony and I'd like to say I support the application, or I oppose the application, or I have these questions, that would be allowed, whether you have party status or you don't. So at this point in time, with that explanation, is there anyone who would desire to have party status? All right, I see no hands, and so again, we'll go in that order, and everyone will have an opportunity to participate or ask or let their feelings be known. I'd also then like to move forward with exhibits. For the record, the conditional use application with attachments will be known for record purposes as Board Exhibit 1. Board Exhibit 2 is the legal notice I just read. Board Exhibit 3 is a proof of publication. B4 is an affidavit of posting. B5, affidavit of mailing. Board Exhibit 6 is a letter from the Township Planner, Ed Thurikoff, dated May 11th, 2023, which is 3 pages. Board Exhibit 7, a letter from the Township Engineer, LTL, dated August 4, 2023, that's 10 pages. Board Exhibit 8 is a letter from the Montgomery County Planning Commission, dated June 21, 2023, which is 5 pages and has 2 attachments. Board Exhibit 9 is a letter from IES Engineers, dated June 16, 2023, which is 1 page. And Board Exhibit 10 is the written decision from the Zoning Hearing Board of Upper Frederick Township for a hearing that was held on July 19th, 2022. Mr. Weiner, any objection to any of those exhibits?
No.
Without objection, they'll be made part of the record. And I'll turn it over to you to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carty. The property which is subject to this hearing is located in the CBE Commercial District, and which allows by conditional use warehouses, storage centers, and minor auto repair. The applicant seeks to use the property for storage and restoration of a private classic car collection, and as the testimony will bear out, this is actually a very low intensity use. There are a limited number of cars that will be stored on this property at any time, and they will be stored inside. The restoration work is performed on a very limited basis, intermittently to some extent, depending on the availability of parts for these cars as they are obtained. There are only 5 to 6 employees, and this operation is normal business hours. As you will hear, it is certainly far less intensive than the other conditional uses that are permitted, even though there are certain similarities. The applicant has also engaged an architect to carefully design the buildings that are proposed to be put on this site so they truly blend with the surrounding area, and they kind of move away from a standard warehouse or storage center, present some character to the property that is basically compatible with the type of use on this property, which are these special cars and very valuable cars. The site will have buffering and stormwater management controls to limit impact on other properties, and those are issues that were fleshed out during Planning Commission review. The applicant, as Mr. Carty noted, has previously obtained zoning hearing board approval to permit the proposed use, but subject to this further hearing before you for conditional use. So tonight we will have 3 witnesses. Steve Shanahan is a representative of the applicant who will explain to you the nature of this use. Mark Myers, no relation to Ross Myers, is the architect involved, and he will talk about the thought process that went into and show you the designs for the buildings on this property. And finally, we have Joe Rosella, who is the engineer for this project. We'll talk about the details of some of the land development, at least as far as it relates to conditional use, and certain steps that have been taken to, moderate any impact on surrounding properties. So with that, I have a booklet of exhibits that are proposed. And, I'd like to call my first witness, who will be Steve Shanahan.
Thank you.
You raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I did.
Spell your first and last name, please.
Stephen, Stephen, Shanahan, Shanahan.
Steve, you are employed by the Applicant Big Road LLC, is that correct?
Yes,
And what's your position there?
project director.
And what are the responsibilities of that position?
We plan, schedule and execute projects for Big Road and other minors related 3-dog projects.
And are you familiar with the property that is subject to this hearing tonight?
Yes,
And who is the owner of the property?
it would be Big Road LLC.
Okay, and as Exhibit 1, I've attached a copy of the deed for this property, and this is in fact the deed that indicates ownership of this property by Big Road LLC.
That is correct.
Okay. And Russ Myers is the principal of Big Road LLC, is that correct?
That's correct.
And are you authorized by Russ Myers to testify on his behalf?
Yes.
So, what condition was this property in when it was acquired?
The condition of property, it was in disrepair, and we had to, clean it up and, take care of it.
So to date, have you done some structural repairs and debris removal on the property?
Yes, we performed debris removal and then performed structural repairs on the existing buildings.
Now, Mr. Myers has a classic car collection that operates in Boyertown, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And are you familiar with that operation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how long have you been affiliated with that operation?
12 years.
And can you just generally describe what goes on at the Boyertown operation?
Yes, Boyertown operation is a combination of restoration and also display at the locations. And the restoration includes they reproduce parts, they manufacture, but restore existing parts and paint and reassemble the race cars there.
Now, referring to Exhibit A2 in the booklet, which is a plan prepared by Howell Engineering, Big Road LLC, the 3-dog garage, there are various buildings that are labeled on this plan. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just going through these buildings, can you please explain the operation of the fabrication shop?
Fabrication shop is where they would dismantle and reassemble the cars and also work on certain parts or create new parts for these rare automobiles.
Carl, can I interrupt for a section? Do you happen to have that drawing on a larger,
It's
so
good
that
we have the word.
we could put it on the easel and the
Yep.
member of the audience can see?
So the first building we were just referring to, the fabrication building, is located where?
Fabrication is right here.
Okay. And there's also a transporter building on the site. Where's that located?
Transporter buildings here.
Okay. What's the function of that
Can
building?
you see that? Can everybody see?
Okay, we can take it.
That'll store 3 trailers and 2 tractors that would pull the enclosed trailers that transport the vehicles to either racetracks or different shows across the country.
Okay. And how many trailers or tractors are located in that building at any one time?
Well, there's 3 trailers and 2 tractors.
Okay. Then there's the, what's labeled as the Ritchie Building, and where's that located?
The Ritchie Building is here.
Okay. And what is the function of that building?
That's an architectural replication of a place that Mr. Myers worked as a teenager, and that would be used for storing 5 finished cars.
And there's also a gas station on the property. You can explain, is that a functioning gas station? What's the
No.
purpose of that?
That'll be a replica of an antique gas station.
It does not function, it
No,
does
it
not
doesn't
actually have
function.
gas storage, does not actually, you don't use
No.
that building to provide gas for the cars that are stored, correct?
No storage, no gas there.
Okay. What are the proposed hours of operation of this property?
The team would work between 7 and 5 Monday through Friday.
Okay. Occasionally, is there any operation on a Saturday?
Intermittently, there might be a Saturday, half a day, now and then.
What are the number of employees that you expect on the site?
5 to 6.
Will there be any noise, fumes, chemicals, or materials that go beyond the walls of this building?
No, this design is fabrication on a body. Everything is done within the buildings.
And will steps be taken so that noise doesn't go beyond the building or to neighboring properties, or fumes go beyond the building's neighboring property?
Sure, yes.
Is there any sort of a paint booth involved with this operation?
Yes, in the body shop, there would be one paint booth.
All right. And how often does that operate?
They use the paint booth maybe once or twice a month.
And will that paint booth comply with all OSHA and other regulatory standards?
Yeah, OSHA for safety and then EPA for air.
Is there any likelihood of ground contamination from that paint booth?
No, there are no floor drains in the building.
There's no what?
No, I'm sorry, no floor drains.
Floor drains.
So there's no way for any chemicals used for any purpose on this, including the paint booth, to escape into the ground, is that correct?
That's correct.
Will there be any outside storage anywhere on this property?
No.
And what happens, explain the process when a car is brought to the site, what happens to the car? How is it stored, what's the process?
Okay, the cars will come in various conditions. Some are just frames, some are mostly complete, and they'll be taken into the fab shop and carefully disassembled, all the parts cataloged, and then restoration of the car will commence, and the restoration process would include getting engines and transmissions redone off-site, and then those being brought back and put in the cars, and then all the body work, chassis work, fine detail work would be done on our site. Process for each car could take anywhere from 1 to 5 years. Typically, Three Dog would have 5 or 6 cars in process at one time, and they complete about 1 to 2 cars per year.
No work is anticipated on any cars that are not part of this private collection, is that correct?
This is a private facility, and they don't do work like commercially or on a retail basis. This is only for the automobiles that are in the Three Dog collection.
And are you willing to agree, on behalf of the applicant, that prior to commencement of operation of any facilities on this property, the groundwater testing will be done on this property and surrounding properties to get a baseline for the standards of current groundwater
Yes, sir.
conditions?
Mhm.
What would the existing house be used for?
The plan for the existing house would be to have a caretaker or a selected rental there. Probably somebody that the Myers family knows.
And is the private collection generally open to the public?
This would not be open to the public except for, as stipulated, possibly 6 times in a year for visit. The open to the public would be in Boyertown, which is displayed by appointment only.
Okay, so if it is open for an event, that's by invitation only, is that correct?
Yeah, this would be invitation only, this site.
And it would be limited to a relatively small number of people? Is that
Small
correct?
groups.
No further questions of this witness?
Members of the board have any questions for Mr. Shanahan?
With regard to tanks, you gonna have any in-ground tanks? Gasoline tanks, propane tanks, anything that's storage in-ground? Undersurface of,
There wouldn't be any gasoline, and nothing to do with the cars. If propane was used as a heating source, there might be a propane tank, but there wouldn't be any tanks associated with the operation of the shop there.
So I guess to carry on that, will there be any underground storage tanks?
Well, water for the sprinklers.
Wait, so,
You know,
I'll tell you what, how about
Yes.
we'll ask that question when the architect testifies, we can get into that in greater detail.
so I'll hold my comments to the end, and then whoever can address them, right? Since we don't know who can answer what, at what
Well,
specific.
you can ask your question, and then Mr. Weiner can decide, you know, if this witness can answer it, or he'll say, we'll get somebody else to answer that.
Okay.
But so as not to, we don't have to get Mr. Shanahan back, you know, might as well ask the question now.
Okay. The architect's drawing here does not depict a public safety entrance on there for police, fire, EMS.
That's going to be our engineer, so that's why we have 3 different witnesses to talk about different components of this. So Mr. Shanahan's role is to really just give you an overview of what this operation is all about.
Okay.
Our next witness will be Mark Myers, who's the architect. We'll talk about the design of the buildings and can answer some details as far as features on the property. And our third witness will be the engineer, who can get into details about landscape buffering, emergency access, those provisions that were discussed as part of land development.
Stormwater.
Right, and stormwater, yes.
Okay. Any sales on the property? Selling
No
vehicles?
sales.
No? All right. Okay.
Anyone in the audience have a question for this witness about what he testified about? So same caveats, you know, if it's a stormwater question,
No.
somebody else.
No.
Okay.
And maybe this is a.
State your name,
First
sir.
of all, my name is Frank Darcy. My question is, so I'm not very familiar, but there's a lot of LLCs and this and that, and Red 3 Dogs and all. I guess my question is, the unfortunate down the road, I know Ross is probably, he's top notch, and I have no fear of that, but my fear is, it's not maybe a fear, but if something happens, with all this LLC and this and 3 Dogs, is it harder to hold somebody, you know, responsible for, you know, down the road, something happens, he decides to sell or so, will the same